Okay, the pieces that I'm using for this pattern, for this project, are going to be from the pattern Simplicity 1153, and it's a variety of different purses and cosmetic bags. I am not making anything that is on here for this project, but it's good to have purse patterns like this. You can interchange the pieces and make your own little projects, and that's what I decided to do. So first of all, I'm going to tell you what pieces I'm using and how I'm cutting them. Alright, so the main piece for the body of the lunch bag is going to be the front and back piece for B. It's all one piece, front and back, and it's for the view B that's on that bag pattern. And then I'm going to use the strap piece for A and B. Alright, so you're going to need 4 pieces of fusible interfacing. I use Pelon or Pelon or whatever you call it. Pelon means bald-headed in Spanish, but anyway, Pelon number 809 is my go-to fusible interfacing. It is a heavy duty. It's great for bags and things like that. We're cutting 4 pieces because we want this bag to stand up nice and firm. This fabric is inside out. I like to cut it inside out most of the time. But anyway, I've cut 4 of the strap pieces, and I like using contrasting pieces. The gray with the polka dots is going to be on the back, and the London fabric is going to be the front part of the strap. And then for the straps, for the interfacing, I'm only cutting 2 pieces. I didn't want a heavy, thick strap, but I did want it to have some crispness to it. So I decided to use, I'm going to use 1 piece of interfacing per strap. And for the lining, which this is also, you're looking at the wrong side of the fabric. I've cut 2 pieces of fabric for the lining. Two pieces for the outside of the bag. And then I have 2 pieces of fabric that I cut, and I did use the pattern piece. This is going to be for the little drawstring part of the bag, the little, you know, compartment there, or whatever you want to call it. All I did was I folded this up, and it's about 5 inches. I did my little measure, and it's 5.5 inches, and I laid it on top of the fabric, and I cut it out. There's no real magic to that. I think that's just a good width, and it worked the first time, so that's how I did that. Now the other step that I needed to do to make another piece for this pattern, I need to split the top a little bit to give that recessed for the drawstring part, the drawstring bag part. And I wanted to do this on camera because I felt like explaining it might be a little confusing for some of y'all. The 2 pieces are here for the inside of the bag, and then I'm going to just going to pin that bottom piece, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over about 2 inches. Yep, exactly 2 inches. That's exactly what I wanted. Now what I want to do is I want to be careful not to cut that fold over, because I'm going to ruin my pattern piece if I do. But I just want to cut this top strip off. Now I've cut this in 2, and I've got my pieces for my recessed part of the bag. And what I want to do is cut a couple of pieces of interfacing to go with this. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I want to press the interfacing onto all of these pieces where they need to go. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it in a speed up so you guys can watch it. But I do have short videos on how to use interfacing, how to put it onto the fabric and all that if you want to watch that. But I'm not going to do it in this video. Alrighty, so the very first step that I want to do is, with right sides facing together, I'm going to take these handle pieces and I wouldn't really call them straps, they're handles because they're short. I'm going to sew down each side and then I'm going to turn them, and I actually already have one sewn. I did it off camera and I realized I needed to film that part. I'm going to get Twisty to turn them for me so I don't have to do that part, but I'm going to do this one and then I'm going to have her turn them, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start constructing the pieces of the bag, and I know it's really hard to see in this light, but this is the lining of the bag. And I'm going to put those with right sides facing together. I'm going to sew down these sides, and then I'm going to sew along this bottom side, and then I will show you how to gather these gussets right here. Okay, so you see I've got these sides and the bottom sewn. Now what I want to do is get the gussets done, and I'm going to just, you saw what I just did, just take my fingers and pull that out flat, and then we're going to line up these seams that are on the side and on the bottom, and we're going to open them up. You don't want to do this with those seams closed. It's going to be bulky, ugly, messy. What I like to do is, first of all, with my fingers, I'm kind of pressing these corners. I want that to get as flat as I can get it. You're not going to damage the bag by doing all this because you're going to press, and it's going to be so pretty when you're done. But I like to take a ruler and just kind of eyeballing it. I like to make myself a mark to sew alongside so that I know that I'm getting a straight line. And that will be my guide. I'll put the edge of the presser foot right at that, and I'll sew along there, and I will have a nice neat line for that gusset. So I have the inside of the bag sewn, the lining, and then I have the outside, and I've done the gussets, and we're just gonna have a little drum roll sound effect I can't do. And look at there, they are very, very pretty, nicely lined up. So what I should have told you guys to do is to leave an opening so that you can turn the bag. But that's okay, it's not terrible, we can still fix it. I'm going to do it on the bottom. When I did that first bag, the little sushi bag that I posted the picture of, I did the side and I found it just really messy to turn like that. So I'm going to take my seam ripper, and you don't have to do it this way, you just sew and mark an opening. But I am going to mark it because I don't want to open it too wide. And I'm going to, so about 4 inches. And I'm just going to very carefully get in between one of these stitches here and pull it a little bit, and I'm going to bust it open. So we got that open, but I don't want to just leave it like that because, you know, I really should have left it when I did that. But what I'm going to do is take it to the machine, and I'm going to just go right on the other side of the marks here, and I'm going to back stitch so that the whole bottom doesn't bust open when I go to turn everything. And Twisty was so kind as to turn these handles for me. So anyway, Twisty has turned these for me, but they look really sloppy, right? So now what we're going to do is we are going to press these. Alright, so I'm going to go over to the machine, and I'm going to let my presser foot, the edge of it, be my guide, and I'm just going to sew right along there on each side. And then the handles will be ready. So you can see these handles are ready, and it really makes a difference when you press them and do that top stitch. They just look so much more professional. Alright, so these are our 2 pieces for the drawstring part. The drawstring bag part. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know what to call it, but anyway, that's what it is. And we're going to take the fabric and lay it with the wrong side facing up. And what I want to do is the first fold that I'm going to make is going to be about a 1/2 inch, a little less than a 1/2 inch probably, maybe. No, it's probably about a 1/2 inch. I'm just going to press that down. Alright, and then the second fold is going to be about 2/3 of an inch. I don't want it to be too wide because it won't look as pretty. It's that nice tight drawstring. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Now, what I want to do is take these to the machine, and I'm going to sew right along the bottom edge of this. So on both of them, I'm going to sew along the bottom edge, and then what I'm going to do is put them with right sides facing together, and I'm going to start my stitch at the bottom of the stitch that I make along this bottom edge. We don't want to stitch this closed right here because this is where we need to put our ribbon for our drawstring. Alrighty, so there's our drawstring piece, and you see I didn't sew all the way up the top because we need that casing for the drawstring itself. Attaching the handles to the bag. And what I want to do is I want to fold this over. I want to make sure that the side seams are flat and everything's flat. You just kind of have to do this. I know it looks complicated, but it's really not. And I'm just taking my finger and making a mark, and then I'm opening it back up, and I'm not going to go far down with this mark. I just want to know where the middle line is. So if you see that mark there, that tells me that is the exact middle of this bag. And I don't have to measure across here because I've folded it over and I know it's the middle. And I'm going to go 3 inches. So I'm making that mark there, 3 inches that way. And I can actually leave that there and go 6 inches this way. And just make my marks. We're going to make sure the wrong sides of this handle are facing out, because when it flips, it'll be right. And you want to make sure that the handle's turned right. You don't want it all twisted up, because you'll have to undo everything and you'll hate yourself all day long. I'm going to place my handles right on the inside of these marks I made 3 inches over from the middle. And I'm going to hold on to that, and I'm going to take a pin, and I'm going to pin it horizontally. I'm not going to pin it vertically because I find that it'll shift a lot if you do it that way. So I'm going to go to the machine, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch just right along the edge. I just want these handles to stay in place so I can put everything together when I get to that step. So I'm going to do that with this side, and I'm going to do it with the other side. And what I do when I get to the other side is, instead of making any markings, I will go over and make sure that they're lined up together. See how nice and flat my bag is? I can just go to the second strap or handle and line it up with the first one that I did. Alright, so then we also want to go ahead and put our band pieces together. This is for like the recess. I'm still calling it a band, but that's not what it is. Right sides facing together. We're just going to sew both ends. Alright, this part can get a little bit tricky. The first bag I made, when I was kind of trying to figure out how I wanted to construct it, I was getting super confused. But what you need to do is this piece that's going to be your drawstring piece, it needs to be wrong side facing right side. So we need to have this here, and then these band pieces need to be right side out facing the right side of the inside of the bag. So I'm opening up all my seams. We don't want those bulky seams in the way, and then I'm going to hold on to that, and then I'm going to grab this little guy here, and I'm going to open up the seams here. And remember, the right side needs to be facing right side, the inside of the bag and this recess piece. I'm holding on to everything, and I'm going to pin those seams open together. So then I'm going to sew all around the top of this, making sure that we're catching everything. You can go in and put a couple of pins in the middle of the front and the back of the bag just to make sure, but I wouldn't over pin it, because all you're going to do is stick the crap out of yourself, and you know, be a lot of tears. See, I've got the pieces sewn onto the inside of the lining part of the bag, and this part seems kind of tricky. It's just a little bit of maneuvering. You got to get this part up and keep the drawstring part out of the way for this step. And what we're going to do is grab the outside of the bag I like to just fold it and kind of stick it in there. And then we're going to line up the sides. You're lining it up with this part that you just put on here. Open up those seams just like we did with the other pieces. And this has to be right sides facing together. The right side of the outside of the bag and the right side of the lining. And we're not worried about this. Obviously the right side of this piece is supposed to be where it is. So then we're going to line up the seams. We're going to make sure the handles are down in there. Alright, so I'm going to take it over to the machine in the same step that I did with this part. I'm going to sew all around the top. I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, I think. So y'all can see this is the bag. We're not quite finished. I've sewn up here, I've turned it, I fixed the hole where I turned it, and I sewed a decorative, I don't know what you call it, just like a top stitch there. It needs a little more pressing and pushing in, but now we need to put a drawstring in it to make this the drawstring bag, lunch bag that it will be. And put your lunch in there, your water bottles, whatever you got. I will definitely be using mine for work. It's handy to have, and our lockers are really small at work. And I usually carry this great big Wonder Woman beach bag that I have, and it's like unnecessary. It looks like I'm camping out at the zoo. Which is where I work, by the way. So anyway, yeah, this one will actually be on sale in my Etsy shop. Once I have the set completed, I'll have a sandwich bag and a snack bag to go with it, and like I said, probably a Snuggie to go on your water bottle too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial, and I will see you next time. Peace. Bye bye.